Welcome back to some more Phenom. I was about to say Phenomeno or Phenomeno, two pronunciations in a way. So, from what I can remember, where we last left off, Nagi decided to take Yoichi into the new house that he was in, just so Yoichi can explore the house a bit and see what was going on with the curses around. And well, all of a sudden, a lot of odd stuff has been happening, and this side of the paranormal stuff, he is at its time limit. So, why am I at the title screen? This game is really short because I didn't notice it's really that short. So we did this, we did flow. So I think we did fall. But aside of that, let's try that out. It said fall. Yep, fall. Look at that. I love the little intro of the third chapter. I think it said third last chapter. So let's see how it goes. The new apartment was fantastic. The pretty cleaned flooring, the new wallpaper, the sterilized unit bath. It wasn't right comparing it to that house, where the previous inhabitants' remnants drifted everywhere. But I definitely learned that it wasn't right to skimp on housing expenses. Oh, absolutely. This was even further from the university. But houses were nearby. I could walk to a convenience store, and there were plenty of streetlights. This apartment, which was brightly lit even at night, was introduced to me by Karasu. From what I heard, one of Karasu's acquaintances was the landlord for this apartment, and she was renting a room here too. It annoyed me a bit that the room was simply a warehouse, a place to put paranormal cursing equipment apparently, for her, but I couldn't complain. Rent rocketed to 50,000 yen, but it was 6 tatami 1K with a loft and a unit bath, so it was extremely cheap for that area. Oh, I don't know about that. It had been 1 week since I looked at that paranormal house with Yoichi. Right after noon on a Sunday, on a rare day with no part-time work and no lectures, I opened the window and took in the comfortable breeze as I sprawled out in the empty room. Okay, I got a really good question. Not a really good question, but what has Nagi? What have you been doing for this whole week, other than your time limit? Like, are you not that scared at all? You're about to be disappeared? I don't know. Sprawled out in an empty room. The previous week had passed by quickly. Oh shit. Yeah, time goes by fast. Like in most cases, there is no refunds in time. Time is like money, you know? Previous week had passed by quickly. First I cried to my big sister and borrowed some money and immediately moved here. I didn't want to enter that house ever again, and it was expensive having to hire people, but it was worth it. Furthermore, this apartment's walls were so thin that would almost instantly want to pick up your neighbor's ringing phones, which made it feel like you were among living people. And you could greet people in the hallways, and if you opened the windows, you could hear the lackadaisical voice of the bamboo pole merchants. Basically, this place was overflowing with life. For me, that was extremely important. As I'd been drained of mental energy to the extremes, I required the comfort of living amidst people. I never met Yoichi again. That night, I gave her a lift to the family restaurant and parted ways. Everything about her was a mystery other than the fact that she was a high school student, and that her real name was Mitsurugi Yoichi. I spoke with her a bit as I escaped to the train station, but I never found out what was going on with that house. She didn't try to explain, and I wasn't in any hurry to ask. However, I had a strange conviction that something bad was there. Every night I heard something eerie, and I even ate a countdown, but mostly I believed it because of Yoishi's one phrase, "This place is real." This was not a place I could deal with. I immediately thought that. If you think about it that way, she was why I was able to make the decision to place myself in such a peaceful place, but it was true what they say, that when the blade is no longer to your throat, you regain your curiosity. Now that it was all in the past, I was truthfully somewhat curious. What did she notice? What was the countdown? What is Yoishi anyways? It was hard to explain, but she seemed different from just an occult maniac. It wasn't like she was getting a thrill out of coming close to danger, but rather, she seemed to have no instinct telling her to avoid dangerous areas. In other words, it was hard to explain her as anything but someone wanting to die. Hard to explain her as anything but someone wanting to die? Is it coming from... Is that really coming from Yoichi? Really? That's weird. Okay, have around music, why the hell not? Whenever she said something, I felt like the world I believed and lived in was about to crumble apart. Sometimes I would take a peek at Ikaigabuchi, but Yoichi never appeared in the thread. And of course, no one reacted to the thread I'd started, and it had been buried deep to the point where I didn't want to revive it. Krishna descended upon various threads, but he never touched on mine or Yoishi's case. That was real. I wanted to write, but I had no means of proving myself, and I myself felt fuzzy about it, so I kept myself to an ordinary life. Indeed, daily life continued. An increased living expense and an abundance of light and heat. My scholarship was insufficient, so I began working part-time at an Italian restaurant near the train station. I wanted to pay back the moving funds that I had borrowed from my big sis too, so I started working whenever I had no lectures. My city survival began as I worked myself to exhaustion and flung a tired smile everywhere. A week flew by, and it was that sort of day. My first university lecture in a while had just ended, and I was stuffing my textbooks into my bag when I realized a girl I recognized was staring at me. She was short, yet her breasts were big enough to notice through her clothing. Her hair was cut straight like a zashiki warashi, and her face resembled that of a young middle schooler. Matching her red-framed glasses. "Who's that?" I stared right back at her, and she cleared her throat once and then came over. She started taking something out of her pocket, then put it back. I saw that it was some sort of paper. She walked to me, standing straight and still, and in the end, never took out that piece of paper. She had a bit of a vexed expression as she glared at me, although her babyish face made it lose its bite, and then clicked her tongue, and then turned away. Hey. I couldn't stop myself from calling out to her. Hey. Or, better yet, hey. But anyways, what do you want? Speak up. The straight-haired girl turned back around and said, "Idiot." Idiot? Despite being mild-mannered, I wasn't one to stand being insulted by a girl I'd never met before. "Why are you being so rude? What's your name? What grade are you in?" I asked, but she simply snapped back, "Shut up. It's your fault to begin with." And then she pointed her small index finger at me. "It's because of scum like you that these things keep happening like this. Learn your place, fool." "Fool, you..." After that, she rapidly asked me, Do your shoulders ache? Do your ears ring? Are you able to sleep at night?" Was she some sort of doctor's apprentice? Did this university even have a medical college? While I was bewildered, the girl finally pulled out the piece of paper from her pocket. She stuck it under my nose. I had no time to take it, as she ran off like a rabbit, and by the time I picked it up, she had already left the classroom. The hell was that? No one was left in the classroom by then, so I looked at the piece of paper I held. It was like a handmade business card. Huh. It just read, Beatnik Research Club President, Kurimoto Shina, and had the location of the Beatnik Research Club situated on the western wing. That night, I saw a dream. In my dream, I was still living in that house. The old 3-story mountain college. God damn it. College. I almost said college. Oh god. The old 3-story mountain cottage by the riverbank. There, I was looking at myself. It was like I'd spiritually departed from my body and was floating in space and was gazing upon me, living my life. The me down there showed no signs of noticing me and continued living normally. It seemed I was watching a bit of the past. I was living carefree as I hadn't learned of the fear of deep noises at night. Hey, come on, stop with this house. I wanted to tell him, but as a person just drifting a dream, there was nothing I could do. All I could do was observe. Eventually, I noticed that Yoichi was sitting next to me. The two of us were sitting together on the old sofa I picked up after moving. The two of us didn't speak to each other, instead just going on with our lives individually. I was yawning as I watched the TV, while she was just quietly reading an old book. It was just a dream, so it was free to make up any situation it wanted, but I still thought it was odd. However, I also accepted that if I were to live together with her, neither of us would really interfere with the other. Eventually, the me down there got bored of the TV and proceeded to stretch, wash his face, and brush his teeth. I thought about studying a bit, but instead I just immediately went to sleep. As I observed myself as an outsider, I realized that I was a pretty boring person. I boasted that I would turn the fortunes of my family's lumber business that was downtrodden, and had departed Shizuoka in opposition of my father and big sister, failed to get into the seminar I wanted, and wandered occult sites. Plus, I hadn't even written a single letter to my mother, who I promised to send letters to after coming to Tokyo. Why didn't you? Finally, I moved into a haunted house because of the low rent, and run into a psychotic girl. I wanted to slap myself. As I sighed and glared, I quickly curled up in my bedroom. Even though Yoichi was there, it seemed I could not see her as I turned off the light. Yoichi seemed to notice the light had gone off as she closed her book and stared off into space. I'd floated down to Yoichi, thinking I'd turned the light on for her. It's about time. I had a bad feeling from Yoichi's words. And then, in the darkness, oh gosh, in the darkness with only moonlight illumination, I heard that sound. From somewhere, the sound of something being scraped. An ominous melody ringing across the border connecting this world and the other. As if something was trying to crawl out of a sealed dimension. As I heard that sound, my body slowly froze. It was like something those supernatural shows on TV, where they set up a camera in rooms that ghosts are rumored to appear. This dream, isn't it bad? I need to wake up as soon as possible, because if I stay here like this, I would see the something that was engraving numbers into this house. I frantically tried to wake up. I waved my limbs around trying to touch something, but I could not wake myself up from the dream. It was like my body had been caught by some black hand seeping out of a different world. Feeling the despair of having been locked into a room with no exit. Within the dream, only my panting echoed, and suddenly I found myself next to Yoichi. Oh God, are you for real? On the old leather sofa, Yoichi and I were embracing each other. As if I were trying to stain both of my palms with Yoishi's body temperature. I played with her body. What is this, some romance moment going on? And yet, it's still playing scary music. That was my wish, and yet it wasn't. I mean, of course, I had some interesting girls as a simple 18-year-old boy, but my lusting wasn't this twisted. I wasn't the type to release my sexual lusts by turning myself into an unseen existence. I was pretty sure I had that much reason in me anyways. However, Yoichi showed no signs of fear. If anything, she was in a state of ecstasy. Her expression was dangerous. I felt my reason making sounds as it broke apart. I licked Yoishi's skin. I groped her breasts through her clothes. I lusted over her soft body with the tips of my fingers. I pulled up her long skirt, showing her white thighs. Yoishi's eyes were barely open. Her lips were slightly parted, and I could see her white teeth. Stop, stop, stop. I screamed from within my body, but I couldn't restrain my abnormal, extreme lusting. However, the moment I placed a hand on her white wrists, oh my God. That huge moment right there. However, the moment I placed the hand on her white wrists, I almost screamed. My arms were not ones I'd become accustomed to seeing, but rather were long and thin, if anything like that of an aged man. Those sleeves were gray and worn. I was wearing an old suit. I felt like I faintly smelled some cologne. I stretched out my trembling arms and felt my face, my nose, my lips. What I felt was hideously not mine. It was definitely that of someone else, and I knew whose it was. Yep, I bet it was the middle-aged man. Him. That man existing at the edge of my vision, and finally my face tilted against my will. My face pointed toward the window ahead, toward the moonlight, and my eyes locked with the man covering Yoichi. That instant, I lost consciousness. Oh my God, that is a fucked up moment right there. Oh Jesus. Along with incredible trembling, I woke up. It was my new apartment with the abnormally bright lighting from the lamp. To my side was a coffee table with the empty box of the convenience store meal I'd just eaten, and an unfinished bottle of oolong tea. Near my pillow, textbooks and notebooks for university had been tossed about. There was a cheap curtain between me and the sash to the small veranda, and it swayed a bit from the night breeze coming through a gap in the sash. I breathed deeply. My heart was still pounding. I came home from work, ate a bit, and then had fallen asleep. Fuck off was scaring me. I felt malice towards no one particular and grabbed the bottle. I gulped down the third or so that was left of the oolong tea. I felt incredibly thirsty, and even the lukewarm oolong tea tasted delicious. When I finished, I felt a bit calmer, and I scratched my hair as I exhaled sharply. Calm down, just a dream. It was just 2 weeks ago. It's not surprising to have some fear still in my heart. That's why I saw that dream, that's all. I mumbled to myself in an effort to persuade myself, but my heart didn't stop pounding. I could feel Yoishi's soft body in my hands. Oh my god. Sounds like a scary ass dream, and a fucked up one too. Oh god. That's just dirty shit right there. Then I realized that something was ringing in my head. It was like a phone from next door. Like a cell phone in my pocket was still ringing. A quiet but definite warning sound. What's bothering you? And looking around the apartment. Or house of some sort. I think it's an apartment. What's bothering you? I looked around. New white wallpaper surrounded me, and there was just a spacious vacant room that I hadn't been able to fill with furniture. Nothing had changed between before and after I'd slept. However, the bell inside my head kept ringing. What is it? I stood up and looked around the room again. There was nothing out of the ordinary. The after effects of a scary dream were just bothering me, that's all. I was trying to think that when I noticed it. Next to the wall was a ladder leading to a small loft. The lighting for the loft was different, so it was slightly dark there. Just then I felt something cold travel down my spine. Why did I pick a place with a loft? Yeah, that's a very good question. Why would you pick a place that... Isn't loft like another word for an attic? I thought it is. I thought he is in a house that has like a roof. I don't know. With a loft. That dark area where it felt like someone might jump out at me from gave me bad thoughts. However, it felt like the warning inside me was directed straight at the loft. I mustered the courage to look up, and the warning sound grew louder. I swallowed once and turned on the light to the loft next to the ladder. Oh god, he's climbing up. Look at this. I placed a foot on the ladder, climbing it one step at a time. And then I willed myself to look into the loft. Oh boy. I wonder who's up there. Of course, there was no one in the loft. Really? I thought it was an attic. I'm guessing it's a little sleeping area of some sort? To put the futon on? In the loft. The only thing there was a cheap sleeping bag I bought instead of a blanket, and a number of books that were scattered about. I breathed with relief and was just about to climb back down when I noticed it. On the other side of the sleeping bag, at the furthest wall, I saw something. Wounds. 2 lines had been violently drawn. I screamed a silent scream as I tumbled down the ladder. I made a loud sound as my knee and shoulder struck the ground, but I didn't care. Somehow I managed to grab my wallet and cell phone, and I jumped out of the door. Not lines. Those weren't lines. That was... two. Time is getting so short. Holy shit. The number 2. I had even moved, but the countdown continued. Once you stepped in the wrong place, you can never go back. Oh my god. I jumped into the night city and ran to a convenience store in search of light, blah blah blah. As I ran, I tapped on my cell phone, accessing Ikaiga Buchi. Oh man, it just gets worse and worse. And then I looked at the forum from end to end. I didn't care if it was Karatsu or Sue or Yoichi or anyone. I desperately looked for someone I knew. And then I saw it in a thread titled Mysterious Dimension. Issei Jingu, a mere 30 minutes ago, Yoichi had posted. Ignoring the serious discussion of how to see Yara no Kagami at the Kotai Jingu, I posted there. Hey Yoichi, help me. The occult maniacs who had their debate interrupted laughed at my spontaneous post, but I ignored them. Yoichi, you're reading this, aren't you? Talk to me. He's still following me. But of course, Yoichi never answered, and it just angered the Issei Jungu maniacs. Even after reaching the convenience store, I looked around Ikaigabuchi while I was in the parking lot. I tried writing in places that Yoichi might find interesting to contact me immediately, but maybe I posted too often because the entire forum rose up in arms calling me a spammer. If I got banned, I'd have trouble contacting her, so I started responding, "No, I'm not a spammer. I'm seriously in trouble," but people just coolly responded that that was spamming. Eventually, others began calling me a wannabe, and I got pissed off and shouted at them, "You scum occult maniacs," and the flames continued. It was like 100 versus 1 as the flames continued being spat. Right as I was feeling like the world was against me, and I was about to slam my phone against the ground, "Are you Nagi?" Someone wrote that. When I looked at the name, it said Krishna. That name was like a miracle descending upon me, and I almost crumbled to the ground. I tried to type a response, but my fingers were trembling too much. As I struggled like that, Krishna posted again, and it said, "Come to the place written on the card I gave you this afternoon." It was past 2 a.m. I'd left my bicycle behind, so I plodded my way to the university on foot. Of course, the front gate was closed, and the security guard looked at me suspiciously. In an effort to escape from that look, I took a wide arc and then went along the fencing toward a line of Zelkova trees on the left. After you walk a bit here, you get to the western wing, which housed the Beatnik Research Club room. Kurimoto Shina. Krishna. I was so careless. I noticed nothing. That the administrator of Ikaigabuchi, Krishna, was a person who attended the same university. And for that baby-faced girl to be Krishna was unimaginable. Yup. Wow. He didn't know. I didn't know either. I went straight to the furthest room and was shocked when I entered. There were still some students inside chatting with each other. I felt a bit exasperated, as though this was some sort of Nevernight Castle, but I guess this was just the way it was for students, and so I felt a bit embarrassed by myself, still being afraid of ghosts. My feet felt heavy as I arrived at the Beatnik Research Club on the 3rd floor, and I saw light on the other side of the smoked glass. I knocked on the door and heard a familiar voice, so I said, "It's Nagi. Yamada Nagito. It's open. Excuse me." When I opened the door, I found myself facing an empty, concrete-walled room of about 10 tatamis. There was a single steel cabinet placed against the wall. In the middle was a relatively large work table, and there were 4 seats placed around the table and 3 people seated. In the middle... Oh! Look what we have here. The same person was the baby-faced girl who had given me a business card in my classroom. The red-framed glasses were as odd as usual, but she was wearing what seemed to be a priestess outfit stained in black, had on a Tagageda and sat on a seat. This suited her too well. I had no interest in such types, but I could almost understand how people who liked lollies and people who liked cosplay felt, which was scary. Are you Krishna? I asked, and the girl made a disdainful face and nodded. I warned you to leave that house immediately. Huh? Karasu told you nothing? Nothing at all. And then Krishna cutely clicked her tongue and said, well, come in. I looked around the room again, and next to the small cult site administrator was a woman who seemed to be in their late 20s and did not seem like a student, wearing simple white Eastern clothing, and a bald, middle-aged man wearing monk attire who, no matter what, looked nothing at all like a student. I didn't know how to greet them, so I just stood bewildered at the entrance, and Krishna made a motion with her small chin to sit there. I sat down on a chair that had been prepared for me, when the middle-aged monk stood behind me and grabbed my shoulders with his thick arms. Hey, what's going on? And then Krishna pushed her glasses up and asked, why are you trying to see the other side on your own accord? And then she began lecturing me in a stern voice. Alright, as long as we don't look, they can't see us either. You can have interest in the occult. It's natural and unavoidable of people to have interest in things that are little understood. Still, the other side has the other side's business. To them, not being able to see does not count as an excuse. Even if you can't see them, humans have enough power to be able to feel them. This is Airy. Then immediately understand that there's something you can't see and pay it due respect. In the face of her stern look, I, the fool, could understand. So basically, I've been possessed, I asked tearfully. At this rate, you're pretty screwed. Well, no shit, I'm screwed. Right when you enter that haunted place with low rent cost, you're pretty much screwed. That's just a scary way of being scammed. Oh man. Pretty screwed. Her expression became ever sterner, and I froze. Krishna, said a woman in white clothes. She had no makeup on and held a strangely shaped rosary in her hand. It's already gotten a bit inside. What? What inside? Can you pull it out here? I'll try. Two of them finished their strange conversation. Wait, Krishna, who are these two? I asked as I tried to escape from the strong monk. Investigators for Ikaigabuchi, answered Krishna bluntly. Investigators? I'll explain later. Just shut up and stay still. It's not use. The host isn't here. I heard a female voice from far away. We have to go to that house. You're right. The middle-aged man and Krishna's voice also echoed a bit, like a record that was losing some speed. I'd begun to slump down. The monk was strong, but that wasn't the only reason. It was as if I had never noticed that I was on the verge of toppling over under extreme weight, and as soon as I realized that, my body's senses frantically tried to show me the level of exhaustion I felt. I felt that sort of exhaustion, one that tried to sink me into a bottomless pit. You can't move? Then don't move. Krishna said in a mysteriously kind voice, and then I lost consciousness. Alright, I think it's good to stop here for now. So let's save and save again. Next time, we're gonna figure it out. Actually, we're not gonna figure it out. Let's see what happens when at this very short time limit. So, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys later.